Welcome back to the Alcohol Free Revolution podcast. Today we're joined by Sarah Connelly. Sarah is a grey area drinking coach, speaker, and educator, and someone who's been on our radar for a long time. Sarah quit the booze in 2019, long before it became fashionable, and she's been coaching since 2020. And her approach is very similar to mine and Steve's, very much science-backed coaching. Sarah's originally from Hertfordshire, and she moved out to Australia in 1999, where she still lives. Sarah, welcome to the Alcohol Free Revolution podcast.
Welcome.
Hello, good to be here.
It's lovely to have you along, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've gone over the pond in the other direction. We've had guests on from the US and various parts of the world, but our first guest, although from the UK, our first guest out in Australia. So that's awesome. And thank you for joining us later in the evening. We kind of always start in the same kind of place, really. Just what was your relationship with alcohol kind of in the beginning before you'd made that decision to go alcohol free in 2019
Mm.
and kind of brought you to what you're doing now? And yeah, if you wouldn't mind kind of letting us know, that'd be great.
I had a very, very tight relationship with alcohol. Alcohol and me, we were pretty good, close friends for a while. But interestingly, I started drinking a bit later in life. I wasn't actually a big drinker in my kind of teens and 20s, mainly because I had to drive everywhere. I lived in a little village and I had to always be the designated driver. So I smoked and I was addicted to nicotine for a very
Okay.
long time. And then nicotine became very unfashionable. And so my addiction morphed into alcohol. And I was drinking, what you would call normal in, British society, which is probably not very healthy, but there was no signals to me that my drinking was problematic other than the next day. And for me, I would notice that some people really didn't seem to struggle with it, but I did more and more. Having had depression and anxiety on and off for many years, my brain was just not designed to consume a depressant on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And it just got worse and worse. And really, what tipped me over the edge was both my parents passed away in quite quick succession, traveling backwards and forwards to the UK, which is a punish. If you've ever been to Australia,
Yeah,
it's a
it's a long way.
trek. And really, there were a few things that were my kind of aha moments. One, staying up for that whole flight, standing at the bar on the plane with
Wow.
where I have absolutely zero memory of that particular flight. Um, and then my dad passing and having a really impactful moment when he died, where I consider it quite lucky. I don't know if you call it an epiphany moment, where I was like, I do not want to die like that.
Mm.
And it really hit me hard. And that was when I decided enough's enough. But I had been thinking about it for a very long time.
Mm. Can I just ask you how old were you when you decided to stop drinking?
46.
Wow, that's
Mm.
exactly the same as me. I was 46. And Steve, I
Oh,
think
there you
you
go.
were.
It must be the
I
magic
was,
age.
yeah, I was 47, 48. Yeah, so it's that magic age. But you
Yeah.
and I'm so sorry to hear what happened and how that drove that. But kind of on that, you say there that it had been on your mind for some time. Was that realization that you mentioned there with sort of the impact of anxiety and depression? Was it, and it wasn't serving you in the same way? Was that a slow burn, or was it something that kind of you decided on earlier and kind of made attempts to try to break away from?
Yeah, I mean, I think the amount of negotiation that you can do with yourself when you're in that cycle of drinking and rationalization. And there'd be times when I'd be really determined and I'd have the journal, this is it, and all that
Mm,
stuff that we do. And then there'd be a party or, something quite innocuous, but it would be a very compelling reason to go back to my drinking.
mm,
And so there was a whole combination of factors, but there was a very quiet voice in the beginning, which was, yeah, this is not going well. And I would drown it out um, with my excuses and finding any reason to justify the drinking. And it got louder and louder over time until I really couldn't ignore it. But I genuinely think that having gone through the journey that I've been through, that my biochemistry and alcohol are just a terrible combination. And I also think that's allowed me to become extremely fascinated by, like you guys have talked about, the science of it. Because once I understood that, all the shame and guilt kind of disappeared.
Mm.
And it was quite baffling to me that I hadn't understood this prior. There was so much of this, you're weak, you should be able to give up on your own, you should going on,
Yeah.
which is,
It can,
yeah, sorry.
I think once you know that, it completely changes the entire landscape, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because with you know, without being overly dramatic, we're sold one thing. We're sold a vision of what alcohol is that makes us question if we're the problem. You know, the whole
Yes.
idea of drink responsibly, that kind of thing. It's just, but when you understand the science, it just makes so much more sense, doesn't it? And it's, we will, you know, if you ask anyone on the street, do you really know what alcohol is? People go, yeah, of course I know what alcohol is. I've been drinking it for 20 years. I know exactly what's going on. You don't. Unless you actually do the learning and read the books, you really don't know. And when you have that information about what's happening, you know, in the brain and the body when alcohol's in your system, it really does change your perspective. And you know, I'm sure you hear it over and over again. It's just once you know that, you just don't see it different. You see it completely differently. And for a lot of people, that's where the shift really happens, and when the desire to drink starts to disappear and starts to ebb away. And of course, when you don't have a desire to do something, you don't have to moderate it, because it's like, I don't have any desire to do it. But what I'd really like to ask you about, Sarah, is you spoke earlier about obviously stopping when you were 46. For a lot of people that we speak to, when people get into their maybe their early 40s, that's when they start having these question marks arise about alcohol. That, you know, is it doing the same thing that it used to do when I was in my 20s and 30s? It just doesn't feel the same. It's getting harder. And I just think it's so common for people in their 40s to have that experience. You said you stopped at 46. Was that an immediate decision, or was it something that had been building for a little while? How old are you actually first started having those thoughts?
I wrote it in my journal, and I've still got the journal. In 2002 was
Oh,
the
wow. So
first
it's quite a long time before then.
long time when
Oh,
I
wow.
first wrote I have to stop drinking. And I actually remember when I wrote it because I was having a very bad depression at that point in time. And so 2002 was the first time that I put it down on paper. So we're talking a long time before I
Mm.
finally made the decision. And within that time frame, there were periods where I would stop, you know, the month or the 2 months to
Yeah.
prove that it really
You're not
wasn't an issue
addicted.
for me. That's
Yeah. I can stop
right.
whenever I want.
Yeah, I'm going to prove it. I'm going to
Yeah.
prove it. Yeah.
Yeah. Then I'm going to start again. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's the
that's
point?
right. And you know, I would be quite good as well at starting with moderating. You know, I'd say, well, then I'd have all my nice little rules, and I'd be okay with that for a few months. But inevitably, you know, as we now know, it eventually is going to get back to what it
Mm.
was before,
Mm.
and it did. And I probably would say that I gave it a good 5 or 6 attempts before I finally was like, this is really boring. Like
Yeah.
just going backwards and forwards. And the relationship that I had with myself was horrific. You know, I was very critical of myself. And that's something that I think, to your point about, you know, the science, one of the biggest problems that I believe people have is they're beating themselves up all the time. And when you beat yourself up, you create stress. And when you're stressed, you drink. So removing that inner critic, or at least recognizing it and calming it down a little bit, you know, not only does it calm the nervous system, but it also quietens those voices of vitriol that can be going on in someone's mind. And when that happens, there's a bit more space, you know, a lot less reactivity that comes in that drinking cycle to just shut that horrible voice off.
Yeah. I mean, something that's standing out for me there, that's so 17 years before after that first thought came in. And something James has mentioned quite a lot recently, and it's so true, and I've seen kind of on your feed as well, James, is that thing, once that voice is there, it's never going away. It's never, you know, it's always going to be there. And that was very much the same for me as well, for years and years and years. And it's so frustrating because you just get into this habit of constantly trying to battle it and reason with it, and it's just it's an argument in your head. It's just noise, and that in its way creates its own stress as well. So, but like we're saying there, that penny drop moment, once you understand exactly what's going on, when did that happen for you? Was that when you took your break, or did you start to have kind of some of this information before you decided to step away from it?
I'd done a little bit of reading, but you know, in 2019, there was very little out there. I don't even think William Porter's book had come out yet. I know you guys had him on. He's amazing. One of my favorite books was his book, Alcohol Explained. But I didn't have those resources. But what did happen is I went to my GP, and I remember it so clearly. I was terrified, but I had a lovely GP, and I was just like blurted it out. I was like, I'm drinking too much. And I was waiting for this, what's going to happen? And she said, look, you know, there's a 2-week program that I think you would benefit from. And so I did that. I did a 2-week inpatient program. And that was where I started to get really into the science. Not that they were teaching that, but for whatever reason, I decided that was a fascination of mine. And I also saw people in the clinic who were a lot further along the path. And that gave me a lot of motivation because I did not want to end up there. And also most of them were, you know, second, third, fourth time visitors. And I was told, you'll be back. Don't you worry, you'll be back. And so there was a lot that happened for me in that 2 weeks. And really in that 2 weeks was what made me decide this is what I wanted to do, because I knew that for somebody perhaps less educated in, I mean, I'd done a lot of personal development work prior to that. There was a lot of negative influence in that environment that I discovered. And so I was like, I thought I'd had this, you know, amazing idea that no one had ever had. Clearly, that was not the case. But at the time, I was, what if we talked about this in a different way? And came out, and that's kind of what started me on the journey of what I do now. And I know I can see in your guys, in your feeds, it becomes a passion.
100%. An obsession.
Yeah, maybe another addiction, right?
Yeah,
maybe it is.
Well,
yeah, I think you've hit.
absolutely.
I think you've hit on something there. Definitely, definitely.
Was it? It sounds to me then that your GP in Australia was quite receptive to that. Then when you went to them initially, was that the case? And I mean, I'm not speaking for every GP in the UK, but more and more, what I hear over and over again with people that I'm working with is that it's not always the case here, and actually, it's often swept away and crack on or go to AA, you know. And I was actually speaking with someone the other day that didn't have a particularly alarming relationship with alcohol in any way whatsoever, but was concerned in a similar way, and spoke to their GP and was directed straight towards AA. And this was someone that was drinking 3 times a month, but was concerned about it themselves, because when they drank, they turned into a bit of a person they didn't necessarily want to be. But it sounds like in Australia it was well received, right?
I think I'm lucky. I'm not, it's the exception, not the rule. For the most part, and I talk to a lot of GPs and also clients that have been to not only GPs, psychologists, psychiatrists, and it's shocking, the advice that they're being given. And even myself, I remember quite a while ago saying to a psychologist, I think I'm drinking too much. And she said, oh, we all need a drink at the end of the day. Now, that, you know, at the time, I was like, oh, great. I've just got the tick of approval to continue with my destructive habit. Thank you very much. But I even, you know, I'm sure like you guys, I even work with GPs and psychologists now. And a lot of the issues that they have, and GPs in particular, is time. And so I've heard many times that it's only if somebody walks in and literally says, I want to stop drinking, that they're going to be bothered to actually try and provide support. If someone's oh, I'm, a bit worried, then for them it's this, I just don't have the time for this because it does take a lot of time and energy.
Mm.
And there's so many barriers for people that are seeking help. Their own barriers and the barriers of, actually finding someone that's willing to really listen and give them the support that they need.
Mm. It's so fascinating, isn't it? 'Cause I think clearly we've all jumped into this space which exists between, grey area drinking and severe alcohol dependency. So I'm trying to not use the word alcoholic, but what traditionally would be referred to as an alcoholic in most people's understanding.
Yeah.
What you've hit on there. You go to a doctor. I'm drinking too much. I'd like to stop. Okay, well, it's go direct to AA. Then that's it. And I think in most people's perception is, well, that's all there is. But I don't consider myself an alcoholic, and I don't really resonate with sitting in a room full of people and labeling myself as someone who has a moral defect and who's always going to have this disease and all this kind of terminology, which are the vast majority of people. And certainly I definitely, I would have rather carry on drinking than gone to AA. There's no way on earth I'd have done something like that. And I think most people just sort of think, well, what else is there? And of course, this is where coaching fills that space. And I'm not on here to try and sell it to anybody, but what in your opinion, Sarah, what is it that coaching provides that maybe isn't available from AA or elsewhere?
Well, I think it very much depends on the coach.
Hmm.
Everybody's different. In my opinion, lived experience is non-negotiable. That might sound extreme, but
No, it makes common sense.
I think you want to be with somebody that's walked the path, and that is the case in AA,
Hmm.
but that's unregulated. Anyone can be a sponsor, anyone can walk you through the 12 steps. I think that coaching is, for me, more about developing a relationship with self as opposed to trying to stop drinking. And I think that really is the heart of what coaching is. It's self-exploration. It's asking questions that are deeper than just why can't I stop drinking and what's
Mm.
wrong with me and I've got this disease, and it's different, and it's horses for courses. Some people find AA really helpful. I personally, like you, James, I did actually try, and I went to 3 because I thought, give it a crack. And yeah, uh, definitely not for me. But you've got to find some, I think the relatability of whoever you're working with is crucial. You need to relate. You need to be open to being challenged, which is, I think, another area that might be missing from other modalities.
Hmm.
And you need to be action oriented. Instead of, the AA model really, in my experience at any rate, is sitting around talking about what you've done, how bad you were, how hard life is. Um, and it's not future focused.
Mm.
Yeah.
Definitely,
There's a,
that's it.
there's a strong identity created in AA that is not, in my opinion, very helpful for future growth. Yeah, that
I
was a
think that's
long-winded
some.
answer.
It's the right answer. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, yeah, I think exactly that's it on the point, and where AA will work and is genuinely where people you just mentioned there. It's about people having walked the path, and often people who go to AA are that when it's successful, they're walking the same path as those people who are in AA, who are
Right.
possibly a little bit more alcohol dependent. But where coaching fits in is into that area where actually when it's a problem for you and it's a problem you want to address yourself, and you hit the nail on the head there, because I think back to when I wanted to stop drinking and I had many failed attempts. It was only once I actually asked myself the question, what the hell does my life look like without it? And who am I without it? That's when the penny finally dropped. And I found that way myself, but coaching, I wasn't aware of such a thing as coaching when I decided to stop, So had I been, absolutely, I'd have gone for it.
Yeah. It's also, AA is a free service.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people like myself the value isn't there. As in, I actually need to invest. I mean, I'm sure like you guys have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on my own coaching and
Yeah.
growth and education. And if you're invested not just emotionally but financially, that also makes you show up.
You are so right. I think you're so right with that.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to kind of touch upon with people but the reality is, if you're investing a significant amount of money in whatever that may be for you, then you've got skin in the game, and you're not going to be getting to Monday morning and thinking, oh, you know what, I'll just start again next week, because you've got nothing to lose, right? And that is the difference from just trying to think, well, okay, I'm just gonna stop on my own for 3 months. I'll just do that. And yeah, you can do that, but you've got no skin in the game. And that investment, when we first started coaching, I'm sure it was the same for you. We used to do kind of free coaching because we were learning. And I always used to find, maybe it's because I was only learning and I was a shit coach at that point, but but the results weren't great at the very beginning because people weren't invested. And once you start actually, developing your own skills, becoming a better coach, developing tools that help people, that you can then reasonably ask them to invest money in, that's when you actually start seeing the results, partly because of the tools and the structure you've built, but the fact that they actually feel like, okay, I've spent money on this, I'm doing this means something this time. That
Absolutely.
is so powerful as a
Yeah,
motivator.
100%. And I think, I say to people when I talk to a lot of people that are keen to, or at least curious about quitting and coming into my program, I'm pretty clear. It's like you've got to invest at least as much time as you've invested into your drinking into this program. For a 10, 20, 30 decade habit. Sorry, not 30 decades.
I was going to say,
Felt like it for a while there.
Let's just say a very long time.
Yeah.
A very long time, and time and energy, and then also financially. How much have you been spending on this substance, and how much more will you spend if you continue to drink it? It's just common sense, really, but it's weird that people don't think about it in that way. The cost of a program versus the cost of continuing
Yeah.
such a destructive habit. And it's not even a sales pitch. It's basically that it is what it is. I've done it and it cost me a lot of money.
I think the reason people don't invest, though, is because they think I should be able to do this on my own. And that goes back to the understanding and the science piece of no. It's got nothing to do with your willpower, your discipline, your system shit. I'm sorry, I don't speak bluntly, but the strategy that you're using is
Doesn't
is,
work.
is flawed. This is why you've been around the loop, and we've all done it. I'm not criticizing anybody. It's exactly the same for me. It took me 8 years to get to where I wanted to be because I kept doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, thinking I was going to get a different result. And that's where, in my opinion, coaching changes the game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
So interested to know, actually, Sarah, just obviously being out in Australia, and it's a long time since I was there, but I really, really want to go back. But what's the landscape like there in terms of in '95? It was incredibly boozy, but I was also at that age. I was backpacking. I was traveling through Australia, and there's big sections of that I genuinely can't remember. But how is it now? How's the sort of alcohol-free lifestyle blossoming in Australia?
It's certainly improved from when I first quit. We'd be lucky to find there's a brand called Edenvale. It was like the only alcohol-free brand in Australia was an alcohol-free wine, the grape juice variety. And now as I'm sure I know it is in the UK, the ranges have just vastly grown. The options are endless now, I think, in terms of what you can get. Restaurants, bars are starting to come on board. More menus are having non-alcoholic sections. So it's really, in quite a short space of time, I'd say, made a lot of progress. The young people, and the research is telling us, I don't really see young people anymore, but the research tells me that, they're drinking less. And I think part of that is they can't afford it. It's extremely expensive. And I also think they're a lot more aware of how they look and being captured on camera. I think that's part of it too. But we have, very similar to the UK, it's a very, very strong drinking culture. And Aussies, the Aussies love a beer with the footy, and it's available everywhere. We can get 24, I think we have 24-hour delivery. I mean, it's insane. If you want to
Yeah.
get your hands on it, you can find it.
Mm.
And there's some awful stories about that too, of people having 5 or 6 deliveries in a night, and
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking. But I
That's
wouldn't
something.
say,
Go on.
sorry.
Sorry. That's something that's really coming into the domain at the moment as well. Back home is that worry around deliveries and removing that barrier. And I was blew my mind when I was in Australia. You got drive-through bottle shops back there, and you
Mhm.
drive through and literally load up the back of your car with beer. But is that becoming a real issue there in terms of delivery? It's a serious concern now.
Well, I guess because I'm constantly vigilant for these sorts of things, I see a lot of the stories that come up. And, you know, it, if you're somebody at home that's really struggling not to drink, it is, well, we've made it as easy as possible
Mm,
for you
mm,
to get your hands on it.
mm.
It's not hard. You pick up Uber Eats or whatever it is
Yeah.
and have it delivered. And then furthermore, you can do that 6 times in a night without any kind of intervention or warning signs, or it being flagged. And so a
Mm.
recent case, even close to where I live, the guy died, and he'd had 6 deliveries in the space of about 8 hours, and it was not picked up that he'd been ordering, a bottle of spirits, and then, clearly thought, I'll just buy the one. An
Yeah.
hour later, needs another one an hour later. So that to me is just unacceptable. I think that did go to a court case. So
Right.
And when you compare, I'm not sure how close you are to kind of UK culture, if you've got any friends back here at the moment, but how much difference do you think there really is between the UK and Australia? I know Australia's always known as having a big drinking culture, as does the UK. But the UK, I think, it's definitely been making some quite considerable strides in the last 5 years. Not, I mean, definitely on the alcohol-free alternative front. I mean, that really is kind of booming at the moment, which is great to see. But I think generally attitudes within our generation are starting to shift as well. It's the same things happening over here in terms of Gen Z and the younger the younger generation. I can't say that in a way that doesn't make me sound like an old fart. But basically,
You are.
the kids are all right, as the Who said. But but in terms of our generation, so people, the Gen Xers, if you like, there's definitely starting to become a shift here. I think if you look at Dry January, for example, 1 in 3 people did it this year, across the entire populace. But actually, probably a higher percentage of those people were people of our age. Is that the same in Australia, or are you still a little bit behind or ahead? Where does it
I'd
sit?
say I'd say from what I know, which is not a great deal. I do have friends in the UK, but I'm not, I don't spend much time there anymore. I do think it's similar, but I think one of the big things that has improved is, and I'm sure it's the same in the UK, is it's very difficult to drink as a young person under the age of 18 in Australia, at least.
Right.
People find a way, but it's a lot harder than what it was when we were growing up. I was drinking at 15,
Mm.
and it was easy. You just turn up to the pub with a cigarette and they let you in. Cigarette and lipstick, and you
You're
you
good
were
to
in.
That
go.
was James's technique.
Yeah, that always worked for me.
I could see that about him. So first off, I think we've got less people drinking at that early age where the brain is so vulnerable to fundamental changes that happen before it actually, I think it's like 23, but the younger you start to drink, the more chances are you're going to have a problem. So I think that's really great that we're a lot stricter with it. But I also think that particularly in Australia, there's a real outdoor lifestyle, and
Mm.
kids are very conscious of their bodies and how they look, and we're probably more likely to be having problems with, steroids and things like that in the future than we are with alcohol. But I'd say they're pretty similar. I mean, human nature is universal, right? And I think we're all People are all dealing with the same things. But the access to alcohol for anyone under 18 it's very difficult here to get hold of it.
What is the legal drinking age in Australia out of interest? Is it
18.
18? It is 18. Okay. Yeah, it's really apparent. I've got a good friend of mine actually that was due to come backpacking with me when we went to Australia, but he couldn't come because his first son was due to arrive. So, and now his first son is living in Brisbane actually, and he's out there. And I look back at the time when I was out there. Well, there were no camera phones, so
No,
equally we didn't,
thank goodness.
yeah, thank goodness. Any evidence I've got of my trips to Australia are vastly quickly fading photographs, sort of in albums under the bed. But his pictures are all, that healthy lifestyle that he's doing, high rocks. He's hugely fit guy, and I'm thinking your experience of Australia was very, very different to mine. And I think it is that outdoor healthy lifestyle is what is well promoted from what I can see, and which is great and it's encouraging. And I think the arrival of phones and social media and how people want to look is the case. In the UK, there's some questions as to whether that's pushing the younger generation towards other things rather than
things.
Yeah. And would you say that's fairly common in Australia as well? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some other things going on that are perhaps worse. I don't know. I've different opinions about what is better or worse.
What's worse? Yeah. How do you define worse?
Yeah, it's true. It's
Exactly.
What I'm kind of looking at that, and yeah, exactly. How do you define worse? But I guess it is that, obviously that's that desire to still seek that mindset change, that kind of that high from whatever it is. And alcohol in the UK is ludicrously expensive, and you've just, as you've said, it's the same thing in Australia. But yeah, so
People will find a way, won't they?
of course they will. So from 2019 onwards, then, so this is where you've kind of now moved into your coaching, and that's been 7 years now.
Well, I've done a lot of coaching courses. I originally trained as a life coach in 2000, back when life coaching was like, what the hell is that? So in Australia, I trained as a life coach in 2000, and then I did a whole lot of interesting, I'm still drinking, but I'm training in coaching, counseling, yoga teaching, psychology. Clearly, I was trying to sort out my own issues.
So you must have been in your 20s back then, right? If I've got the timeline right.
Yeah, I was 27.
I'm not sure I'd be taking life advice from a 27-year-old. No offense, Sarah.
You'd be surprised.
We probably all could take some life advice from 27-year-olds.
You're completely right. You're completely right.
I think at that point in time, I was probably slightly overconfident about my skills. But I knew it's what I wanted to do. At least I knew I wanted to be helpful in some way. And so then when I quit drinking, all of that training had become very helpful. But then I wanted to understand a lot more about alcohol, specifically addiction. And I think probably like you guys, a bit of a course junkie. It's just like, teach me more. So I still, I do courses and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. It just became, I would say, a fascination. I'm fascinated about what it takes for somebody to change. And I love that I can say one thing to one person and that's it for them. And the other person's going, no, it doesn't mean nothing to me. People will say, what are your top tips? I'm like, I can give a tip to one person and it's a light bulb, and another person, it means nothing. And the diversity and what it takes for someone to just have that moment, that's what I get excited about in this work. I like, I say it's like when you see the lights come on, that to me is what this is all about. That's what keeps me going, because I'm sure, I say to people, no one would do this for the money. You just wouldn't do it for the money.
It's when you describe your journey there, it really genuinely fascinates me because yours is actually quite different from mine and Steve's in one regard, and a lot of other coaches that we know, in that yours almost feels like a natural progression because you were on this, as you've just described, when you became, you trained as a life coach and you've been all about educating yourself, and stopping drinking kind of fitted into the middle of that journey, and it feels like a very natural progression. Whereas with Steve and I, we did, regular jobs, drank too much, then stopped drinking, and then just thought, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing ever. I want to help other people, and went off in this completely midlife tangent of, right, okay, this is what I want to do. This is incredible. This is an absolute life-changing moment. I want to help other people do the same thing. But
all the
yours
time thinking, I wish I'd done it when I was 27.
exactly. But yours has been like a gradual. If I'm understanding what you've said correctly, it's been a gradual journey that you've been on where you've added more and more skills, about coaching, about helping people, and then in the middle you've made a change for yourself, and that's been part of it. That's really fascinating, I think.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because it was always that incongruence as well, that
Mm.
I would be teaching a mindfulness class and going home and drinking wine. And so there was this whole sort of
Cognitive dissonance.
right, this sort of incongruence that was also blended with the normality of the drinking and the normalizing of it. And as you guys know, you're sort of going through this, well, is it bad? Am I? You're looking around and it doesn't seem to be a problem. But I think the thing that really changed for me was when I decided it doesn't matter what anyone else is drinking, whether I'm drinking more or less, it's a problem for me. That's it. It's a problem for me. And that sounds really simple, but I think it changed a lot for me because I wasn't looking for a benchmark or a diagnosis or an amount that was, was going to give me permission to stop. Um, but yeah, I mean, I also did have and still have another business, and I've been lucky enough to run that business through the whole thing, which has supported me financially and paid for my courses
Right.
because otherwise, yeah, I don't think I would be here. So I have a business background as well, but this
I own
is
a
this.
gin distillery.
That's right.
I sell the biggest selling gin in Australia. We won't say.
Don't tell anyone.
So that direct shift into alcohol-free coaching was 2019 onwards, or was it a slow
No, I
shift?
decided I did about 18 months of okay, I'm just going to really focus on myself. I didn't want to jump straight into it. Well, I did, but I felt like it was important for me to actually really find my own footing before I decided to go and try and help other people. I then worked for a company called the Alcohol Free Lifestyle. It's probably one of the largest ones I think now in terms of coaching high performers. I worked for them for 3 years, and then made a big decision and decided that I wanted to do it on my own terms, and that's been for the last sort of 18 months.
Amazing.
Hmm.
You mentioned they're working alongside high performers, and I know that that's often very similar for myself, and I think for James as well. And I think it's that landscape. When we say that we're working for high performers, I think that really sums up a lot of that grey area drinking, and particularly that demand, that unwind after work. Is that what kind of drove you? Is that what became your why into coaching that area specifically, or what kind of drove that for you?
I think it was quite, I don't want to say the word selfish, but there's a certain type of person that I really enjoy working with. And it comes back to relatability. I've worked with all kinds of different people, and the people that I have the greatest impact on and they get the best results, the people that relate to me, I relate to them on every sort of level.
Mhm.
And so it was a very conscious decision, and I was very mindful at the time that when I started marketing and getting involved in stuff, that I didn't want to do a mass market $100 30-day program. That just
Yeah.
was not something that I was interested in doing. I was interested in actually, and I love group. I really only do group coaching now because I think it works. It's more impactful, but I love it. But I do small groups so that I can get to know everybody. I can understand what drives each individual but also have that group dynamic. But it's taken, I think, a lot longer in some respects to build my business because I'm not trying to reach everybody. But I think the main reason for that is for me to be at my best, I've had to design it in a certain way that doesn't overwhelm me and that I actually love what I do. Because I don't know if you've had the experience of not loving what you do, but it's not fun. So I
Yeah.
was really conscious that I wanted to build it in a way that where I get up every day and I'm raring to go. And yeah.
And that just makes
What's
you the best coach you can be, right? If you're coaching the people that you can completely and utterly relate to, you're coming back to that relatability point that you mentioned earlier. If you're getting the very best results because they are the right people you want to work with, then absolutely that's why you get up in the morning, really, and that's for exactly that reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
what do you think some of the strengths are of group coaching versus one-to-one?
Well, I've done both. And I've seen the best results with group.
What do you put that down to?
A couple of things. There's I'm not the only one. And particularly when you have like-minded people in a group and a CEO sees another CEO and goes, oh, right, okay, I don't have to be as hard on myself. I'm not the only one. That's a big part of it. I'm not the only one. Here's someone I relate to that's had exactly the same issues. Those connections are gold. And I think that's probably the most important thing that I do, other than the coaching, is actually getting the people in the room. And that's the hard work, right? Getting them in there.
I think people expect it's going to be an AA meeting, don't they? That's the thing. Whereas it's not at all.
Well,
It's like-minded
yeah.
individual.
And I think people are very private, right? You know, they don't want to air their dirty laundry, so to speak. But the whole way that we work, and I know from what I know of you guys, is not in any way like that. It's fun. It's
It really is.
aspirational. It's motivating. Nobody wants to sit around and be miserable. And if you do, then we're probably not the coaches for you. So, you've got to find your vibe. And when you get those people in a room, it's beautiful. I've gone over to the US and had, group holidays with these people, retreats, and they're all catching up in New York next week, actually, a whole bunch of them. They've created these lifelong connections, and they pick each other up when, inevitably someone has a slip, which happens from time to time. It's just a beautiful connection that they create. And I don't think one-on-one, well, it doesn't create that. But the other thing I think is there's one-on-one coaching, which is more impactful, I think, a bit further down the path, when they've removed the barrier to personal growth, which is what I see alcohol as, and then they can start to access parts of themselves that they've perhaps ignored, or don't even know yet. And that's perhaps when one-on-one is more impactful, I believe. Ideally, people do both. They do a group coaching and then they have their own either coach or counsellor or psychologist, because we're all pretty messed up at the end of the day. And I think it's worth investing, in being happy and not suffering. It's like that's what I've invested in my whole life, and it's worked.
I think the benefit you get of group as well is that you've got that camaraderie, but also you've got so much positive reinforcement, because we are fundamentally tribal creatures and we're not meant to be on our own. We're not. And stopping drinking, subconsciously what you're telling yourself is, I'm isolating myself from my community, from my tribe, and that is really frictionful. And your subconscious is going to throw things at you like, whoa, don't do that. No, 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 no. We don't want to be doing that. That's where danger is. Whereas when you're anchoring yourself to a group of people who are doing the same thing and who are constantly telling you how great it is and how good it is for them, that is just so reinforcing for people. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think it generally creates Me Too moments as well, where people can really empathize with each other and really think, oh yeah, it's not just me. because like I said at the beginning, it's so common in people in their 40s to sort of think it's just me, something's not right. Why is everybody else having a wonderful time and I can't take it anymore? That's an illusion and it's not
Mm,
true. And when you're
mm.
part of a group, you realize that, oh yeah, great, brilliant. There's loads of people who are thinking the same thing I am, and that just gives you the fuel to carry on. So I just think it's couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and it's so funny, isn't it? Yeah, that these people people will say to me, "Well, look, nobody else knows that I'm drinking like this. Nobody else knows." But then they don't realize that that's happening for a lot of other people too.
Mm,
So they're looking out there going, everybody else is drinking normally, and I've got this little secret going on
mm.
that nobody knows.
It's the
I
social
wonder
conditioning, isn't it?
I wonder if there might be a few other people out there that nobody knows. So yeah, there's a lot of I'm the only one going on in people's minds that I've got this issue and nobody else will understand or nobody else has it. And yeah, when you put them in a room, like you say, and they go, "Oh yeah, I did that," and they go, "Oh my God,
They're the
Yeah.
absolute golden moments, though, aren't they? They're
weight
just
weight lifted off." Mm.
exactly, exactly. And it's, I mean, the coaching I do is one to one, but we also have the alcohol free revolution community, and the best sessions that we see in there, the best hours that we have in there, is literally when we have these golden nuggets of or moments that just where the rest of the room kind of take care of themselves, and myself and James are just watching everybody coaching each other, and it's just like
Yes.
we've had some incredible moments. It's like, and I've also, I've often heard that phrase, the opposite of addiction is connection. And once you actually get people together into a room and they connect with each other and realize it's not so isolating, that can be where the real magic really happens.
Yeah, and it is magic, isn't it? When it happens.
100%.
And what about you, Sarah? So when you actually, quit drinking, what were some of the benefits that you saw? What kind of, you know, what was the transformation that you saw from stopping to being 7 years in now?
I had what people were saying was the pink cloud. I was actually probably very irritating when I first stopped drinking because I was ecstatic. I was so sure that I was stuck like that forever. I just felt like I'm just going to be, this is my life. I'm going to have to drink this stuff and live this life, and had a really negative narrative. So even 2 weeks in after I'd realized I don't, because I was drinking every day by the time I quit. And
Right.
I really, it had gone downhill quite fast after my dad died. I couldn't imagine actually not drinking on a day. It was kind of at that point. So going into rehab or detox, you can't drink. You just can't get hold of it. So I knew that for 2 weeks I wasn't going to drink. And I didn't know how that would turn out for me. I didn't need, drugs, or I wasn't having the shakes or anything like that. But it was bad. My drinking was at a point for me that was really bad. So not doing it for 2 weeks, I was like, wow, I'm still alive and I feel great.
Mm.
Um, and I started to reconnect with who I had forgotten I was. My identity drifted so far into this drinking identity. Um, and I think by dint of having done so much work before, I was able to come back to who I used to be quite quickly. And coming back to that person was just so wonderful. I was ecstatic. And really, I haven't come down in 7 years.
Just keeps giving, doesn't it?
That's not true. I've had my moments and I've had times where, haven't been feeling great. But the
Life still
idea of,
happens.
yeah, but I think the biggest change for me is self-trust, self-respect, peace of
Mm.
mind. Peace of mind was a big one of my whys. I just wanted peace in my mind, and when I took alcohol out, that was obviously the thing that was preventing that.
And you stopped pre-COVID as well, right? So how did that work out? Because I think for a lot of people, they either went one way or the other. Well, obviously you stopped without knowing that COVID was coming, but people, people, I have that you had a crystal ball, but most people either thought, okay, right, this is my opportunity to stop. I'm going to be locked in the house. I can't continue, or they went and started drinking like a maniac, which is exactly what I did. So going into COVID, like only, basically you would have been, how long would you have been alcohol free for when COVID
Three
hit?
months. About
3 months.
Wow.
Wow.
three
Okay. So
months.
tell me about how that went.
Well, I was just, as I said, I was so happy not to be drinking that the idea of drinking again was not even on my radar. So I didn't really even factor COVID into anything. My husband was still going to work, so he wasn't at home. If he had been at home, maybe I would have gone back to
Murdered him. Maybe he'd be dead now.
yeah, that's right. Well, one of us would be, perhaps. But no, it never occurred to me to drink. And I guess in some ways it was helpful because people weren't going out. So I wasn't having to go out to places at that vulnerable stage and, deal with people trying to make me drink or encourage me, should I say. But COVID was a really good time for me, actually. I had a chance to not be outside in the outside world and just kind of look inside and do a lot of inner work, as we call it. I don't know. I got told off when I was in the rehab for being so happy for being alcohol free. I got told to like temper it down, and I was, judged quite a lot in there, and so I kept my mouth shut. But it was another reason why I was like, why should I pretend to be miserable
Yeah.
when I'm not?
Exactly.
So yeah, it was an interesting learning experience.
That's really fascinating as well, because again, I kind of say this some weeks. I think if you've got if you have a serious drinking disorder, or you're drinking hazardous amounts, I'm excluding people from what I'm about to say. I think that a lot of the area that we're speaking about, this grey area, I generally don't think it's as difficult as people think it is to change their relationship with alcohol. I think there's what you said there in terms of, can you just tone it down a bit and be a bit more miserable? I think we're told that it's going to be really horrendously difficult and you're not going to be able to do this and it's really, really hard. And I don't believe that, because I've seen it. I've seen the evidence. If you have the right strategy and the right structure, the right systems in place to support you, it's really not that hard. It's all limiting beliefs that you're telling yourself. And I believe that.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think that you're 100% right. I think the narrative out there is it's going to be miserable and you're going to be
Why would you do it?
struggling and you're going to be isolated and people are going to judge you and all those, like you say, those beliefs that we've been conditioned with for decades. And then the realization that people have that actually when you change your relationship, it's such a, change your relationship to alcohol and you see it as, you devalue it. But suddenly it has no value, or the value of it is severely diminished. It's easy.
When you see it for what it is. It's not, we're not making this up. When you see it for what it is, nicely packaged poison. That's what it is. That's the only thing that's true about it. The rest is all your own beliefs.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's so true. And that's the greatest moment, isn't it, in coaching? That's why we do it. When that penny drops, when people see it, and James hasn't said it yet, but I'm going to say it. We say it most of the time. Once you're outside the jar, when you're in the jar and you can't read the label, but once you actually step outside and you can actually see what's going on. I had a lovely moment with someone I've been coaching for about 3 months now, and they said to me, you know what, and it's that when it was at that point when we're going back and reflecting on everything we said in the beginning, what we thought alcohol was giving us, and actually that realization of having that change during the coaching program. And then they turned around and said, you know what, I got down there that alcohol was my reward, and now everything I've gained, that not drinking, that is now my real reward, and that is what drives me, and that's the penny drop. That is the shift.
That is bang on. It's just when they realize that not drinking is the reward, that's when you know that the work, a lot of the work has been done.
Yeah.
that not drinking becomes the reward is because it is,
Yeah.
especially if you've been really struggling
Yeah.
and you realize that you don't have to do it anymore. And it's like you said, James, it's not as hard as you originally think. But that the environment's so important for that, and that's why the groups are really powerful, because you've got to be in an environment that supports the decision, because when you're out in the world, you're in an environment that's pushing you towards it. Hopefully in 30 years time, that won't be the case, but I think for now we've got to immerse ourselves in that lifestyle choice and being around people that are living with that lifestyle choice. Aspirational people that are changing their lives, not just in a small way, but quite dramatically. Some of them, especially some of these, I'm sure, the high achievers, once they get going, it's God. Whoa, slow down. Another business, another. And it's incredible, isn't it? Because you think, well, you've got this far drinking. Imagine where you're going to get once you take the alcohol away. Like that's some extraordinary things that people get up to after they stop.
100%. I had a guy, he, similar to your saying, and this was just, again, a lovely moment. He had been getting out to get, walking up into the hills near his house for years and years. He's about 6 or 7 weeks in alcohol free. And he'd walked past this old shell of a World War II plane, part of it, like a wreck. And he'd walked past it for years and years and years and years and years. And he had this epiphany. He just thought, you know what? How many times have I walked past this? So he used his influence and he got people from the village to come and collect this part of the plane, bring it down into the village. He machined it, brought it back to its initial glory, and put a plaque on it and put it up for the village to see as in a memorial to the people that died in that wreck. And I was like, that's it. That's that moment. Yeah. That having that ability, you walk past something like that so many times, and then all of a sudden, wow, and that's yeah. That story just kind of jumped out at me when you were saying that. These people, and they suddenly go, what can I do now?
Right.
That would have never happened.
Right. Yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to see. Do you guys, just out of curiosity, I should know this, but do you guys work with women and men or just men?
I work with women and men.
I'm primarily men. Primarily men. Dads particularly.
Dads.
Yeah.
Dads. I love
because I am one.
Cool. Well, look, Sarah, one question we always ask people at the end is if you cast your mind back to when you were 18 years old, and I know it's not that long ago, knowing what you know now about alcohol, would you have done anything differently? Would you have never drank?
Oh, that's such a good question. I have to put myself back there. If I knew what I knew now, does everybody else know as well, or is it just me?
It's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I guess whatever you prefer.
I think I probably was wiser at 18 than I was when I started drinking, because I really wasn't that interested in it. I didn't like the mind-altering effect of it. So if you'd added in what I know now, then I think I wouldn't have touched the stuff.
Really? But then you wouldn't be on the course you're on now. You wouldn't be who you are now.
No, but I'd be doing something equally as wonderful, I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's great.
I would have found something else. No, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I would touch it, really, because I think it caused me so much misery that
I think we always come back to that.
I prefer to get my personal growth from other means.
I think it always comes back to that, doesn't it? Is that when we ask that question, it very, very much depends on how people discovered alcohol, how they came into finding alcohol. If they initially fell in love with it and it was just gave them that confidence and they suddenly felt part of everything, and for a long period of time that really worked for them, then the answer is normally that they wouldn't have done so. But it's interesting hearing you saying there that when you started drinking, it wasn't really for you at the beginning, but that shifted.
Yeah, and I think it is a gateway, and I do believe this, that, and I say this to clients, and I mean it, that in a way it's a gift. It's a gift that you have this opportunity. your calling is an issue with alcohol, other people get it from other things, accidents, illness, whatever. We get given, I believe, a tap on the shoulder. For these people, it's alcohol. For me, it was alcohol, where that voice has to come out and not shut up, which is the voice, I believe, of who we really are. And it's a gateway. You're having an issue with alcohol is, I believe, at any rate, a gateway to some of the greatest personal growth you'll ever have the opportunity to do. But you've got to get past that initial, all those initial barriers, which is why we're talking here, right? To try and reduce some of those barriers.
The only other thing I want to ask at this point, because of the day that we're recording, it's now 8:30 in Australia. Have England scored yet, or is it still 0-0?
Well, no, because
I like that.
yeah, I've got to wait till 5 in the morning, and we've got.
You're not going
I've
to get
got
up for that, surely.
I am. I've
I'll
got
get
two
up for
boys.
5. It's easier
God,
than staying up for 1, isn't it?
I didn't stay up to the midnight kickoff. Nothing's more important than sleep to me as a 50-year-old man. Sorry, Sarah, go ahead.
What time is it on for you guys?
8 p.m.
8 p.m.
Oh yeah, so
It's not
for us
bad,
it's
actually.
5 a.m. and I've got two boys,
Me too.
and they are, Mum, are you going to get up and watch? So I have to. It's a bonding experience.
Yeah.
So.
Well, fingers crossed. When on day of release, when this comes out, we'll be either jumping for joy or crying into our microphones.
Oh, it's gonna be tense. It's gonna be tense.
For sure. Well, Sarah, before we go, if people want to find out more about what it is you do and where they can reach you, what's the best way to do that?
My website is my name, sarahconnelly.com.au. Instagram, Sarah Connelly. Just put Sarah Connelly in and you'll find me one way or another. And I do like to talk to everybody I don't have like a just join this program. I like to talk to people, get to know, make sure that it's the right fit. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been so much fun. I could have talked to you guys for a lot longer.
We'd love to have you on another time
We'll
in the
do it
future,
another,
I'm
we'll do it another
sure.
time. Yeah, it's been great to meet you, Sarah. Wonderful.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you so
Take
much,
care.
guys.
Okay,
See you
take
soon.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.